You're listening to the Break Podcast powered by Career Cloud.
Hi, welcome back to another edition of The Break on Career Cloud Radio. I'm your host, as always, Michael Garden. Career change, fear, and money. Those concepts are tightly interlinked. Much of my work is trying to break the traditional conceptions of this trinity of effects so that we can step boldly forth on our path. I've wanted to get the financial perspective nailed down for some time, but I haven't found a financial expert that could really smash the way we think about money in times of change. Until now. Richard Archer is a chartered financial analyst and certified financial planner for ambitious, driven, and intentional professionals. He helps people make big financial decisions and transitions with confidence. Richard believes money is a tool, and he helps his clients use their money to live authentic lives, not just save it for retirement. In fact, he says, if you die with $5 million in the bank, I've failed. Richard is here for all the exciting and courageous conversations we love to have around money, fear, risk, and investment, and using money as a tool to intentionally design your life. I hope you enjoy this episode with Richard Archer of Archer Investment Management. This episode is sponsored by ZipRecruiter. If you need a change and are looking for a new job, or if you're looking to hire for your small business, please check out ZipRecruiter today. Their smart technology matches the right candidates to the right jobs and sends new opportunities right to your inbox. They make finding a job or hiring the right person easier than ever. ZipRecruiter, the smarter way to hire. Try ZipRecruiter for free today by going to ZipRecruiter.com and tell them I sent you. Richard, welcome to the show. Happy Friday. How are you?
Hi, Michael. I'm doing great. I'm so glad to be here.
Yeah, this is going to be a fun conversation. Can you let people know where you're coming to us from, first off?
Yeah, I'm coming from Austin, Texas. It is very hot here, and we've been in an incredible drought. So it's a strange desert-like place to be living right now.
Interesting. So I've been there once. I actually may be coming down there in a few months. I'll ring you up if I do. More on that maybe after the show. But I wanted to have you on and talk about finance. In another life, I could have been you. I was very interested in finance. I have a background in it a little bit and, almost went the kind of financial advisor route. As I sit here at 42 years old and have not gone that route, I work out of coffee shops and I hear conversations all the time with financial advisors pitching clients. And I'm sitting here going like, oh, I hear the same scripts. Everything's a kind of a dime a dozen and I have almost this aversion, but this show is all about breaking our norms and thinking different so we can set ourselves up to make a change. And I really liked kind of your fresh take and your, what you're putting out there. And so I want to open the conversation here, with this idea. So this idea that what you said. So can you explain the saying, if you die with $5 million in the bank, I have failed? Because that's kind of your moniker.
Yeah, we always joke about that internally. It's just something I say all the time to clients, and they always laugh. The idea is that money is a tool, and amassing hundreds of millions of dollars in the bank and not living your life along the way doesn't make any sense at all. So what we really focus on is living your life intentionally, both with your career and with your money, and making sure that, you remember to take time to, take vacations with your family, and you remember to have work-life balance. And, our younger clients, our Gen Z and millennials are really focused on this as a group. And, working for the same company for 30 years and then retiring with gold watch, that's done. So we want to make sure that people, let me give you a quick story. So we've got a client who was, he's 60-ish now, lives on the East Coast, and he's done very well for himself. He worked for 30 years, built his company, and was very frugal with his money. And he's always wanted a Porsche, a 911 Turbo, right? Always. He has more than enough money to buy a brand new one. And it took us close to 4 years to convince him to buy it. It's just a blip. I mean, he's done so well. It's just a blip, but he's just so frugal with his money. But this is, the extreme example where we want to remind him to enjoy himself with all the fruits of his labor. And so he bought it 6 months ago now. and he sent us pictures, and it is beautiful, and he's having a lot of fun with it, and actually has told us that he wished he'd done it years ago.
And so why I think that this is so refreshing, just for our audience members who may not totally understand sort of how the world of financial planning works and the history of finance, right? That take and that view is sort of antithetical to the traditional financial advisor model, where a financial advisor, again, to me, okay, is like an asset gatherer, and the more money that they manage, the more money they make. And so the idea that a financial planner is saying, hey, let's figure out how to spend some of this,
right,
actually works, technically against their interests, which is why I feel like it's so unique.
Yeah, we're really leaning. So this is an incredibly competitive industry now. So it's not just asset management anymore. Financial planning is looking at all facets of your financial life: estate planning, taxes, college planning, whatever. There's a whole nother level to it that we're leaning into. And frankly, we're cutting edge in the industry. That we're looking at behavioral finance and being intentional with your money, and thinking about how your money can help you lead a more fulfilling life on a daily basis. We want to build you a financial plan with you that when you get up in the morning, you're excited to get up and work on it. And just like what you're trying to achieve with your listeners and your podcast is for people to find a career that they're excited about, whether it's working for a company or working for yourself, and leaving ones that aren't working for you. We ask questions like, if you knew you were going to die in a year, but you were going to be healthy until then, what would you change about your life right now? That's a big question. And it kind of makes you think. It's kind of serious. We've had people cry when we've asked that question before because they're headed down the wrong path. If you knew you were going to die tomorrow, what would you most regret not having done? Right. And, I actually listened to one of your former podcasts, and I really liked something one of your guests said. He said, figure out who you want to be, what you want to be doing, and why you want to be doing it. And you need to dig first before you start climbing. And I thought that was very much what we're doing with our financial planning. It's very similar.
Yeah, that's so interesting. It's hard work. People aren't used to getting that type of question where they're forced to really think proactively about how they want to design things going forward. And that's what happens to me a lot in my coaching practice as well, is we don't start really thinking about the future necessarily. We start with, where are you right now? And what do you have at your disposal? And this is more in terms of like being able to go horizontal and do something different than, but linking that, like having this sort of idea of North Star, success, feeling how you want to live your life, and working backwards from that is very interesting. And I think it's so much about the questions that you ask, as opposed to the actual like blocking and tackling of a plan at the beginning, right? And so you've mentioned people have cried. I mean, can you give us a little insight to that? Because I've had that same thing happen, and I'm just really curious how that went for you.
Yeah. So what's funny is we just hired a fractional behavioral counselor to add to our firm so that we can help clients. And she's going to be examining our client onboarding and plan building process and our financial plans from beginning to end, looking from it from a psychological standpoint, and how can we add nudges to help people get where they want to go in an easier fashion. And what happened for us is that during the pandemic, everybody slowed down. We all had time to like slow down and think for a second. And a lot of people, a lot of our clients changed jobs. So they realized they weren't happy, right? And they realized they really like working remote and want to keep doing it, right? Like a lot of us. Because we went virtual during pandemic. We sold our office. It's gone. We're completely virtual. So we have clients across the country working with us that we've never met in person, and they like it that way. And with that thinking, these questions about being intentional and having like a real kind of, we call them a come to Jesus moment about your life and where you're headed, became a lot more top of mind for people after the pandemic. And the conversations were a lot easier because people were kind of already there. Let me give you an example. We had one client who's a big time executive at a job recruiting company, ironically, website. And we had this conversation with him, and he said to us, I haven't spent enough time with my kids. Within a month, he quit his job. They went to Portugal as a family, and he took a sabbatical with his wife. And they just got back 2 weeks ago. And he's a really good example of somebody who answered the questions, thought it through, and made immediate change. And he says it's one of the best decisions he's ever made. So, and he came back and got a better job. So it works out. If you're intentional, and you live a life of, meaning to you, it can lead to really good things.
It's so fascinating how far and long we can go in our lives just being a passenger, right? I think I heard this quote, like, I forget who it was, but like, it's, are you a passenger in your life or are you a participant in your life? And I think, the pandemic was one of those major wake up calls for a lot of people because they finally had time to breathe a little bit and think about some of these deep questions. Plus you had sort of the mortality aspect of it, right? Like, what is going to happen? And is everybody going to go away? Is it going to be a blip, one of those blip moments from like the Marvel movies or something? So that's the intention is, I think, so important. And I think when I talk to people around careers and start to talk about intention, it really, when you start to think about what you want versus what you don't, what you're not living and how misaligned you are there's a big fear there. There's a lot of different fears. One is, why am I not doing that? Two is, how could I ever get there? Because I'm on this one path. I'm the passenger on this train track. And then three is the how of, and that's all related to money. Mm-hmm. Where I'm at now, and I couldn't possibly do that. So talk to me a little bit about some of those conversations that you have with people who realize that they're maybe misaligned and how you get them to think a little bit differently about the money aspect of things.
Yeah, that's exactly what we do. Right. So couple of things. One is we've had a number of clients. We work with, obviously being in Austin, we work with a lot of tech professionals who've made very good money over the last 10 years, stock options, equity compensation, and that has afforded them the capital to try something else without, necessarily affecting their daily lifestyle, right? So we've had a number of clients who have exercised those options, and taken their money and, use that as opportunity to turn their side hustle into a new career, or to take a sabbatical, or to, join that startup that isn't going to pay them anything for 3 years because it's brand new and they're just trying to get funding, but the upside is astronomical, right? So it gives them the chance to take on new challenges. For other people who don't have those stock options and that big capital outlay, there's a couple of different things that we do. We've got a client in Colorado who has been very good about being intentional about his career from the very beginning. And what he's done, and we've worked with him on, is he's found a mentor at every company he's worked at who's 2 or 3 or 4 levels above him, who he talks to about their experiences and how he can craft his career in a way that is most meaningful to him. It's worked really well for him. He's a super nice guy. And he's changed jobs a few times and has found a mentor at each company. And it just turned out that each time he's been making slight adjustments to his career and what he's interested in doing and finding new challenges that he finds interesting. He just took a job with Google because he's become very specific in what he knows how to do. Just took a job with Google for more money on an annual salary than he's ever earned. And they gave him a 7-figure signing bonus that he, secret to you and me, that he would have taken the job without it. So it's like, holy cow. I mean, he won the lottery. So, one of the things that he's done in addition to finding a mentor is that, he has been training himself along the way and building up the skills for the job that he wants, not the job that he has. So he's been taking the opportunities to, learn new programming skills, learn new management skills. He's a ninja, right? And all those management skills that he needs so that he's somebody he would hire for the job that he wants, if that makes sense.
Right. And so that kind of involves knowing what you want, and being extraordinarily intentional in going that way.
Incredibly intentional. And then talking to people who've already done it, who are way ahead of him, and not making their same mistakes with their, and his mentors from his old companies, he still talks to. So now he has 4 really high powered mentors that he talks to regularly and has coffee with when he can. He's got like his own advisory board. It's very cool what he's done.
That's really interesting. The idea of mentorship, and finding people who are a couple steps in front of you makes a ton of sense. For our listeners who are like, oh yeah, I wish I had a 7-figure signing bonus and all of that, and some cash in the bank. The stuff that I like to think about is how could you engineer that stockpile that person might have, that what's in the bank. How might you engineer that in a different way? And so I think one of the examples I heard from one of your conversations as I was doing a little bit of research was the idea. I think it was the story about the husband and wife, the husband that wanted a boat, and how he figured out how to sort of pay for that in a novel way. And I think people don't think outside the box about these things. It feels simple to me to go really horizontal and think like that, but there's a lot of agility in being able to pause for a second and think outside the box about how you might pay for something. Can you tell that story if you remember it? How you work with people like that?
Yeah, we've got a couple like that. One of the boat stories, he really wanted about, because a boat, what a boat stands for, bringing out another 1,000, right? I mean, I'm in a boat club. I've had a boat. They're incredibly expensive. They're a huge waste of money, but they're really fun. And we all know that. And I had a long conversation with the couple about the boat because it became a big kind of, sticking point in their financial relationship. And what this particular client ended up doing is he ended up, he likes to drive the boat anyway. So he put himself out for hire a few hours a month at a couple $100 so people could rent time on the boat and he would drive them as the professional driver. And it helped offset his expenses for the boat. And so just, doing something he already loved and showing other people, teaching them how to wake surf and to ski was really fun for him. So it was a win-win. He's getting paid to do stuff that he would happily do for free.
Right. I talk about this type of thing a lot with people who are like, on the fence about making an investment in themselves too. Like, let's say it's taking a coaching course, not with me, but anybody else. Or they're like, oh, I wish I could do X, Y, or Z, but it's going to cost $2,000, $5,000, whatever it is. It's like, do a little thought exercise. You might feel really guilty about taking $5,000 from your savings account and plopping it down over there. That may feel like really anxiety provoking, but how might you think about paying for that? So, in another way, one that I did, I took a really expensive weight training course and like fitness program, and I was like, it's pretty expensive. How could I pay for this? And so I thought about, kind of the traditional, like, well, what if I don't go out to eat every day for lunch? There was like those things, but then also like, what if I took what I'm learning here and used it to get packaged some of the ideas and used it to get more clients? Like there's all sorts of ways that you can really think differently about making that investment and paying for it that I think a lot of people just don't think about.
Yeah. I mean, one thing that everyone on my team, we use LinkedIn a lot, and we're always looking for interesting content to kind of convey our messages, right? Because financial planning can be really boring, right? You need to do your estate planning, right? So what can we do to make it more interesting? And so I posted a video that got thousands of impressions just a few weeks ago about me learning to foil surf. I don't know if you know what foil surfing is, but it's not just surfing. You actually raise up out of the water on a foil, like a fin under the water. It's incredibly hard, and I'm terrible at it, but I'm getting better. But that, I used that video that my buddy took a few weekends ago of me behind the boat and used it to convey a financial planning message, and it works. So that's one of the ways I use being part of a boat club, to kind of defray the cost by using it as part of our marketing.
So talk to me about, we were kind of on this topic of having cash piles or having some way to bridge a change. I call it runway because in startup land, like that's what it's called. how do you talk about like do some of your clients who want to do something different come to you and say, hey, Richard, I want to do X, and you are part of the mastermind that helps figure out this runway? How do you think about bridging that gap for a client?
Oh yeah. I mean, there's lots of ways. One, obviously the obvious one is to save some money in the bank. So you've got 3 to 6 months of expenses in the bank. So you've got some, risk off the table. 2 is to start this building your next career or your side hustle while you're still working. So there's overlap and, let your current job fund your next job. One of the things, we've got a client, who's brilliant. He's 33. And what he does, because he gets bored with his jobs. So he leaves before he loses interest, right? Because he knows that, it's easier to get a job right after you've done some really great work. Twice now, he's been Employee of the Year and left right after winning the award, which is really funny. It's easier for him to get recommendations, and companies want to hire proven winners that are on a winning streak. And so he does that as a launch pad from job to job. And so that's worked really well for him because he gets lots of equity. The other thing that makes it easier is to build your network before you need it. I spent a lot of time on LinkedIn meeting new people. Honestly, I think LinkedIn is the hottest social media platform right now because it doesn't have a lot of the garbage on there. And there's a lot of people on there actually that want to have interesting conversations. I spent a lot of time commenting on other people's posts and asking them questions about things I don't understand, whether it's on finance or elsewhere, technology, cryptocurrencies, whatever it is. And building out that network and building those relationships with people that I never would have met in real life is incredibly valuable for me. Not just to get new clients, but to connect my clients with them when they need a connection in a particular area. I love connecting people together. It's one of my favorite things to do. So if you can build your network before you need it and then become a connector, your future is whatever you want it to be.
Because what we're talking about is something that I talk about a lot from finance background is this idea of optionality. And I would say having cash and continuously building your network are 2 of the highest leverage optionality activities that you could possibly do. Because cash gives you the ability to sort of solve a problem with capital, or get to another stage with capital. And the other one, same deal with relationships. And what you kind of talked about, there's like those second order effects of, okay, I'm commenting and learning because I'm using questions that I don't understand. So I am learning something which is valuable to me. I'm building relationships for myself, and I can leverage that a third way and say I'm building relationships for my clients. Like, I hope people listening can start to understand why that is so important. Because again, in our world of looking at jobs, it's like, 90% of jobs aren't filled by just throwing your resume in a file. It's through a network. It's through some intermediary or relationship based thing. And I see that's where you could be really valuable to a lot of clients.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's what we're looking to add value anywhere we can. And we have a lot of clients who are, a typical listener of your podcast who are looking to change jobs and are looking to change careers and are looking to start their own companies. Anything we can do to help them do that and to think ahead and then say, hey, this is what these other 5 clients have done successfully. Let's not recreate the wheel. Here's what we can, this is what their goals were. This is how long it took. This is their success rate. Talking about that has been incredibly valuable, especially to our younger clients.
You're listening to the Break Podcast powered by Career Cloud.
This episode is sponsored by ZipRecruiter. If you need a change and are looking for a new job, or if you're looking to hire for your small business, please check out ZipRecruiter today. Their smart technology matches the right candidates to the right jobs and sends new opportunities right to your inbox. They make finding a job or hiring the right person easier than ever. ZipRecruiter, the smarter way to hire. Try ZipRecruiter for free today by going to ZipRecruiter.com and tell them I sent you. This conversation makes me think of this word balance, because I would assume the way that you're approaching this with your clients, there is almost, or a lot of times there's dual outcomes to optimize for. So one is, yes, like, what is the balance between sort of saving for the future, for your kids' education, for things that are going to come up in the future, the idea that maybe you don't want to work when you're 65, that type of thing, but also having options and being set up financially to go from, okay, I have a job at Google to, I want to work with this nonprofit or start this side business. I want to take a sabbatical, all of those types of things. How do you think about that balance?
Yeah, I'll speak about myself in this one because
Sure.
this is a challenge that I have, every day just in my own life. I'm a type A go-getter. Didn't know I was an entrepreneur until about 15 years ago. And now I can't imagine ever working for someone ever again. Once you figure out you're an entrepreneur and you jump off that cliff and you can fly under your own power, it changes you fundamentally at the genetic level.
Yes.
I think you probably understand this, Michael. And, for me, as our firm has been growing, I'm learning a few really important things. One, to make sure, I'll be 50 in a year and a half, right? I'm not going to live forever. I got to make sure I don't work all the time, that I see my kid before she goes off to college, and that I do some traveling while I still have the energy to do it, right? Sometimes, we have clients who forget to take vacations until they're 70, and then they can't do all the things they thought they were going to do in their head, right? We try to prevent that. But also I'm learning how to delegate, because as I grow my firm, and realizing that you're not the only person who can do anything in your life. So not being afraid to hire really powerful people and seeing the leverage effects of working with others, whether it's a partner in a startup or someone who's got the similar interests as you, trusting them to, help you pull your rowboat in the right direction together, is a big jump. And now I'm at the point where, I've hired a couple of generation 2 advisors, and I'm looking at my own retirement in 15, 20 years, but it takes that long, to transition the firm over and to, get them ready to run the firm, themselves. And so there's a lot of big ways to kind of address your question that I'm doing in my own life right now.
Yeah, it's all like every decision. Essentially, my view is like every decision that we make is an investment decision, because we're allocating resources, attention, people, capital, money, whatever it might be. And we're basically placing bets that that our action is going to lead to some expected outcome, hopefully with, by using some leverage, and not all of it's going to work. But that's how we have to start to think about the world. And that's how I think about balance. It's sort of a financial portfolio approach. I have to have this much over here, with the idea that I can change and mutate and, be agile along the way. And then I have to have so much over here in case I want to do something else. It sort of leads to that barbell, approach where you have a bunch of safety and optionality. And then you have some really high impact, high growth things that you're maybe trying to pursue, or changes or growth that you're trying to make. Those are all investments as well. That's not just spending, that's investing in your future. So that's how I think about it, as a barbell.
Yeah, I think something that you mentioned earlier about how, going through a weightlifting course or hiring a coach, you've got to invest in your health, you got to invest in your career, you got to invest in your family, you got to have free time, you invest in your friends, you got to invest in your network, in your business. And so, for me, the only way that I can do that is if I'm very on top of my calendar, and my clients are doing this too. You've got to set aside specific times for working out, or else work will overwhelm it. A lot of times work is going to overwhelm everything, especially for go-getters. It can easily take over your life. So setting specific times on your calendar, and then learning to say no, or learning to just stop even if you're not done with whatever project you're on. I have found that as my career has progressed, and a lot of my clients, one of the most powerful things I've heard from them and learned from them, especially the CEO types, is learning to say no. Because you've only got so much energy and so much time, and choosing what's really going to be rewarding for you, and in a way that's part of your plan, is the only things you should be working on. Although there's a lot of distractions. You can spend all day reading the news or sitting on Facebook or Twitter or whatever, and and feel like you're really informed about the world, but you're actually not accomplishing anything. So those people who ignore the noise and focus on their mission tend to be a lot more successful.
Yeah, saying no is definitely a superpower in where we live today, with like unlimited information coming at you and distractions and things that you could possibly do, shiny objects, all this kind of stuff. It's what I try to focus on too, because when a client of mine comes and finally gets that break and realizes like they can do something else with their life, like they don't have to stay on the same path, their eyes get really big and they say, oh my God, there's a million things I could do. And that's shiny object syndrome. And that's where we need to go. No. Where's our foundation? Where do we start from? How do we think about intentionality and what we actually want? Not what the ROI of something could be, or what, our logical brain tells us. What do we feel like we want to do? What do we want to dedicate the next 5-10 years of our life to? And we build that way. And so we try to use constraints. Like, I think people have to be able to put constraints on themselves in certain ways. And I'm sure it's the same with, you probably have a lot of these conversations with the other side of investment and planning, which is kind of the spending side. Like, what do you cut? So how do those conversations go? Because that's a very similar thing. It's like, okay, how do we say no to these things so that we can do these?
Yep. So, one of the things we always like to tell clients is, we have a goal setting meeting. We figure out whatever it is that's going to make them happy, whether it's they want to, do long bike rides. We've got clients who like climbing bikes in the mountains like me, and, they want to travel. This is a good example. Or it's really important. We have clients where it's really important that their kids go to any school that they can get into, and they want to make sure they can pay for it. So whatever's important to you, eating out all the time, whatever it is, it's your money. Do with it what you want. Live your best life. But focus your money on that, and then cut mercilessly on the stuff that's not important to you. Get rid of all those subscriptions you're not using. If you're working out at home, get rid of that gym membership. If your life goal is to go and have a side hustle, well, you don't need 17 subscriptions to every TV and movie channel, right? It's just wasted money. So focus mercilessly, or cut mercilessly on the stuff that's not important to you.
Yeah, that makes a ton of sense. So I want to talk about kind of your personal story. You alluded to it a little bit. And obviously I can't resist a good, break story, a story about how people do something different. But I must say, like, when I go and look at your LinkedIn profile, it seems pretty straight to me, right? It's McCombs Business School. You're a smart guy. Wharton, economics, finance, always been in the finance industry. So when you kind of said, yeah, I got a little story of my own, it perked my ears. So talk to us a little bit about your history and how you came to, had your come to Jesus moment about choosing a new path.
Yeah. So what's interesting about me is that all throughout my career, when I was working for other people, I was never very happy working for somebody else, but I didn't quite kind of get what the problem was until I was a little bit older. I've always been an entrepreneur and just naturally the type of person who likes to lead a firm, but I didn't know it until I was doing my MBA at Texas McCombs, and I came to an impasse with my current firm that I was working at. The great people, but just realized we were not on the same page. Mm-hmm. And I got so frustrated, and they got so frustrated because we just had a different view about how the firm should be run. And so I left and took a bunch of my clients with me. It was amicable, right? They were happy that I was leaving too, because I think I was a terrible employee. Because I think it takes a very special boss to have me as an employee, because I'm always looking to improve. I'm always asking hard questions. I'm always pushing. And if someone's not really confident and competent, who's my boss, they would be very threatened by me. And it was a problem for me. So now that I took the jump while I was in the MBA school and started my practice, now that it was like almost the next day I was sitting down and I was, finishing up the paperwork to launch my new firm and bringing clients over. And I suddenly had this calm come over me because I finally realized what I was supposed to be doing the whole time. But it took me until I was 35 to figure it out. Right. And you don't really know. I was like, wait, I can do this on my own. And I've, been fortunate enough to learn from a lot of people who do this well earlier in my career. but I have all the skills I need. I don't need anybody else. I certainly don't need to be sharing, all the revenue that comes in with someone who wasn't adding value to me because I can do it myself. So I think once I brought over that first client of my own, and I realized that I can sell, because no matter what you do, whatever your startup is, your entrepreneurial vision, if you can't sell it, you're going to fail. You got to figure out how to convey the value that, who you are, where your heart is and why your heart is where it's supposed to be. And then, how a client can work with you in a way that's beneficial to them. If you can't communicate that, then you need to not start a company until you can, because sales, no matter what you do, sales is going to be a big factor. And we work with a lot of technology companies, so we're always looking for new tech and financial planning. And we just talked to one a couple of weeks ago that's using AI to take notes during meetings, and it puts it in a format that's really useful for us from client meetings. And his company's been live for 2 weeks. So we're always looking for people like that are just like us back in the day, because I have a lot of empathy for them. And so we enjoy working with those people. And sometimes I'll ask them questions and push them a little bit on things I realize they haven't thought through yet, just because, I find it enjoyable and I want to help them succeed.
Yeah, I've got a big empathy spot for that crew as well. I know that pain. I know what that's been like, and it takes a lot of courage to go do. So that's kind of like, I view that as my charitable giving. Like, I'll invest in something. Yeah, I want it to work, and I think it's going to produce a return, or I'll invest my time. But that's what I like and where I think I can be helpful. So I try to play in that sandbox as well. I can't resist. I gotta dig in here and double click a little bit on your story. And obviously, you don't need to share any specifics or anything like that. But I'm more curious about what was going through your head in the moments that sort of changed your thought process, because I want people in that same boat that are feeling the same thing that you did to say, oh, that's what that is. So I want to start the line of questioning by saying, like, when you were working for other people, you didn't know you were an entrepreneur, you said. Was it something that was just like completely foreign to you? Okay, so you had really no basis for what that was at all. And you described a little bit of conflict in terms of how you thought the firm should be run, but are there any specific moments where the light bulb went off? I would love for you to get into those.
Yeah. So, mine was, I was always very outspoken, about how I thought the firm should be run, whether it's an ethical manner or in decisions for clients, or, decisions for how we market and who we market to. So came to disagreements on that. And I remember sitting at a conference table, hadn't even considered starting my own firm. And I was sitting at a conference table, and the partners of the firm were both speaking to me. And I realized, it just came over me that we were never going to agree. And I was so frustrated because I knew I was right. I mean, I am right. My firm's killing it now. I was right. And I got so frustrated. I'm in a meeting. It's 3 guys. We're all adults. I'm in this room. I started crying right there in front of those guys. I mean, they're both I started crying. I was so frustrated. It was like, why is nobody understanding what I'm trying to say? I've got this perfect vision. I know exactly what's going to work. And they just weren't willing to do that. I started crying. And so that was my breaking point. And I knew, I took a deep breath, collected myself, and I knew right then that I had to go build my own sandbox, because, nobody was going to move as fast as me. No one was going to be able to be as decisive as I wanted to be, and no one was going to build the product to the level of quality that I thought I could build it to. So I've done it. My firm is killing it. I've got 5 people now. We're hiring another one. We're growing really quickly. And I love my job, and I can't imagine doing anything else.
Yeah, that's so fascinating to me. I think the people that are outspoken, that get pushback and are like, what the hell? Just if people are outspoken to me, for instance, somebody can yell at me and I'm like, okay. And I'm like searching for the feedback. Mm-hmm. But if you're out, if you can do that and then you are outspoken and you expect people to, oh, we're all on the same page. Like, aren't we trying to learn? Aren't we trying to get better? But other people can't take that. Like, that is a sign that you're not a good employee. Like, take that as a sign from high above that you should seriously consider how you can, at the very least, create more autonomy for yourself. Because that is a conflict that is not going to go away. You are naturally wired to speak your mind, and you can take it when other people speak their mind to you. And so you can't rationalize that somebody else can't do it. Like, that is never going to go away.
My mantra when I was working for other people was be hard on the issues and soft on the people, so that deliver the message that needs to be said, but do it in a kind way. And when that doesn't work, when you guys just aren't on the same page, it's time to move on.
So how did you think about it from the standpoint of, because another option you could have is, okay, culturally, this isn't right for me.
Yeah.
I might need to go find another company. Like, I talk to people all the time about that. It's not necessarily that I am an entrepreneur, I have to go start something new, but maybe it's culturally. Did you ever think about that, or how did you think through that option?
Yeah, I mean, you nailed it, right? You read between the lines there. So culturally, we were a terrible fit. And that was my mistake, not being wise enough when I first took that job that I wasn't going to fit in there. For example, one of the things that I was leaning into, because I'm a very open-minded person. I was marketing towards the LGBTQIA plus community. I'm heterosexual, but I've got friends who are there. It's fine. I love everybody. And frankly, they're fantastic clients, and nobody was addressing them in our industry because people didn't, especially here in Texas, people didn't know how to work with them. I didn't find it particularly difficult, frankly. I love working with LGBTQ clients. And so I wanted to do that. And I got pushback from a cultural perspective, just a discomfort from the firm. And that was my first sign, like, oh, maybe I am supposed to be doing this somewhere else. So, when you finally have that other shoe drop, you look back and there were so many signs leading up to it. Many things and red flags that you chose to ignore, maybe because of fear or lack of understanding or lack of creative thinking. I didn't think I was an entrepreneur until I realized I had to be an entrepreneur. And then once I did it, 2 days later, I was so relieved. It's kind of like, when you're in high school or college, you're dating the wrong person. The relationship is just so much work and it's just frustrating, and it's just so much work. And then you finally meet somebody where it isn't work and you're like, oh, this is really nice. And, we get along. That's what it feels like. It's that break from a bad relationship into the relationship you're supposed to be in. That's how it feels for me.
Yeah. And sometimes it takes something else to compare it to, right? Because for you to really see that, because we fight it. We say, oh, this is normal. And we ignore the warning signs until we come to that break moment, that tipping point that flips the way that we look at things. And then we look back and it's like, oh yeah, totally. I see that coming. Mine was, or one of mine, I've had a lot of them, but I was in a consultative role for a large insurance company. We're doing innovation work. Mm-hmm. And I was supporting one of our subsidiaries. And so my main contact at the subsidiary, we build this pitch, and he's giving it to like the strategic leadership team and talking all about the great work that they're doing and all this kind of stuff. And my boss's boss like comes to me and is like, well, how come you're not up there talking about that? Like, what percentage of that work can we take credit for? And I was like, oh my God, I thought I was supposed to be like a Navy SEAL here, coming in, supporting, in the dead of the night, leaving and giving everybody else the credit. Like, that's what I thought. And it turned out to be exact opposite. And that was I was just like, oh my God, like I'm a horrible employee for this company. Like, there's no way. If that's my mentality and somebody has a different one, oh, it's just not going to work at all.
No. And sometimes that aha moment isn't so dramatic. Sometimes I've seen friends who, especially for MBA school, who are successful at being entrepreneurs, and it causes, you see your friend doing something like, hey, wait a minute. And it suddenly changes the paradigm about how you think. And, I've got a friend now who is a serial entrepreneur. He started one company and then started another company and started another company. And that's something that, is in my mind, like, how exactly do you do that? Right. Being, I think you're a serial entrepreneur, and having that ability to be the CEO of multiple companies at the same time while you're working on all the businesses without working in all the businesses. And that would be the next jump for me, which I have to decide if I want to make, honestly. But just getting into that mentality it's a new mind frame. I guess Tony Robbins speaks to this a little bit in some of his seminars. I think I saw a LinkedIn post the other day about it. I was like, yeah, that's what I've been thinking about. So I'd be curious to get your take on that transition from one company to have running multiples and being a serial entrepreneur.
I definitely think that just has to be sort of how you're wired. I look at it as it's a creative act and it's a creative outlet. So I've tried to set up sort of my main business to be able to support taking on different projects and trying to use it as a launch pad for different things. Because I tell this to people all the time. Like, I just think this way. I think horizontally all the time. I'm going really wide, and I'm always trying to bring back and find intersections and crossing paths and trying to make connections between things. So that's how I look at it, but I don't put a lot of pressure on it. It's like, what's the foundation need to be in order for me to feel like an exploration is worthwhile? Not think, oh, X's and O's, the ROI, I'm going to map this venture out, and its ROI is this. It's way more about, am I connected to that product? Like, do I want to try to build that product? And is that, if that fails, which it's likely to fail, right? Like, if that fails, would it still be worth it? Like, those are some of the questions that I think about. But it's definitely not for everyone. And it comes with its own set of anxiety and conflict, right? I talk to a lot of people who are in a job and they're frustrated, they hate their job. And we always try to go with, like, what are you running from, and try to really dig into what that is. Is it, I am an entrepreneur, or I need just a different cultural fit, or I need more autonomy in a job? We try to get really specific about that, because I don't think that the avenue is always, oh, you got to go be a solopreneur and start a business, because doing that creates a whole new set of headaches and frustrations and anxiety. Now you're the one on the hook for everything, right? And you feel like you're on an island. So you have to be able to weather that too. And I think there's so much internal work to kind of take the conversation back to the beginning, right? Of like digging into what you want and being intentional. There's so much inner work to set that foundation. And then have a mindset of adaptability and confidence to say, all right, my life is likely going to change a few times in the future. How do I go with that? How do I lean into more of the optionality that comes with it, instead of just thinking, oh, change is a risk? So that's the type of stuff like that I have really tried to explore in my career, changing careers 6-7 times and building multiple businesses, and what I'm trying to like sort of go teach people, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I think it makes perfect sense. I think that is something that you're bringing up a really big point that I want to leave the listeners with today, is that hiring a coach like you, or a therapist, if that's what you need, or finding a really good mentor is crucial to helping you get clarity on what you want to be and where you want to go and what you don't want to be, which you brought up earlier. I think I saw an example on LinkedIn again, because I'm on there all the time, the other day, about somebody talking about how they were sick, and then they didn't know what it was. They were just feeling bad. They finally got a diagnosis of what was wrong with them. And suddenly just knowing what was wrong with them made them feel so much better, because now they could specifically address the problems in a concerted way. But also, with your job, if you're super unhappy in your job, finding someone to help you get clarity to, like, first principles, what is it that you want and why are you unhappy, is incredibly freeing. And it'll take so much stress out of your life if you finally go, oh, this is what I'm supposed to be doing. So for me, I learned at 33 that my superpower is what's called consultative sales. I'm very good at taking something complex, making it simple, and showing someone how it might benefit them. That's what I do all day long in financial planning, right? All day long. And then figuring out that I was an entrepreneur on top of that, and then putting those two things together into this alchemy that is this fast growing firm for me, was frankly one of the proudest moments of my life. This firm, and I got a kid and I got a great marriage, of course. That goes without saying, but building my company, having my name on the door and helping the hundreds of families that we work with and hiring some amazing employees and being their main source of income. I get up in the morning, I'm like, I can't freaking believe I did it sometimes.
That's amazing. I love how
it came out of the air. This didn't exist until it was an idea in my head and I made it happen.
I love how you describe that. It was, that's what we're striving for is that feeling where we're bringing our authentic selves, creating the work that we want to do, and having that be like harmonious is I think what we're all striving for. How did you figure out at 33 that was your superpower? Consultative sales.
Well, what was funny is in that my PTQ, not to use that term too many times, but I come to Jesus moment where I'm sitting with my head down crying in this meeting. It kind of dawned on me. I'm like, flat. You have those moments in your life where everything kind of flashes through and you get clarity and you realize where you are in time and space right then. And I realized that all throughout my career, no matter what firm I'd worked at, I was always the advisor or the planner who took on the difficult clients, the clients who nobody else wanted to work with or found them difficult to work with, couldn't communicate with them, whatever. I found it very easy, no matter where they were coming from. I was able to empathize with them, listen first, frankly, find out what was really, where they were stuck or where their financial traumas were, and then meet them where they were. And in doing that, I got really confident at it. And then I'm sitting there with my head on the table and I was like, wait, I don't need this firm to do this for me. I can do this by myself, and all the compliance and the rest of the stuff you can outsource. So why not go do what I'm really freaking good at all day long? And, my business has grown primarily by referrals since then. We've had some amazing years, and that's what I do is I listen to people, meet them where they are and help them get where they want to go. It's what you do too. It's the same thing.
So it sort of just came to you in that moment. There was that same moment.
You get this clarity, it's like when you kind of figure out who you want to marry, you see that person, you look at him, you're like, yeah, by the time you ask them, you're certain, it's so obvious, right? And it just, when I was under that pressure, just butting my head up against this other firm, and I just gave up. You kind of just give up, and the frustration dumps out of you, and you're like, oh, you're so stupid. I could have done this 5 years ago, right? You suddenly circle back to something you kind of probably already knew, but now you're being forced to admit to yourself.
Yeah, it's that idea that
you're going to jump.
That idea that you're holding on so tight you can't see, and then once you release and let go, things come together. So,
yeah.
What I try to do in my program, it's called advantage mapping, but it's basically like start where you are and try to get clarity on what your true advantages are, not just skills and that kind of thing, but like holistically, I have how we talk about advantage and where advantage comes from, and cross those up, and then it's a creative exercise to get somebody to think about how they could use those advantages in different ways. And then it's just a matter of the exploration process, which is I don't have to make the one right decision and pick the one path. I have to get the next piece of information that tells me to stay on this path. And you start to just break that down, and it becomes a fun, curious way of living life and exploring what you really should do, rather than putting all this pressure on yourself to make one, giant decision. So that's like the stuff that we try to work on. And I just see that so much with you and how you're working with clients as well.
Yeah, that's frankly, I didn't have the benefit of having a coach like you.
Right.
I ended up doing that. I read lots of articles. I read all the time. And that what are my advantages? What are my competitive advantages? What you do in MBA school, right? SWOT analysis, right?
Right.
I actually did that list of my own, exactly what you're talking about, before I started my firm. And I wrote down 7 or 8 things that I know that I'm better at than 99% of other people. And that's what I sell.
Yeah.
Once I figured out what those things were and what I really like doing, one of these, I really like getting education. So I have 13 letters after my name now. I went to work, went to McCombs. I get education for education's sake sometimes. And that actually differentiated me from 99% of the industry, because most people can't speak to all the different things I can speak to. I also really like, I'm most comfortable like at big parties, like in college, frat party, whatever. I'm horribly uncomfortable. I don't know what to do with myself. I'm so awkward. But you get me one-on-one with a client or an employee or a friend, I am on fire. That is my spot, right? So I'm super comfortable in consultative situations. And so that's when I shine. So that's what I do.
That story about the cocktail party, I mean, that is exactly me. Like,
Yeah.
I would rather be in a corner talking to one person and having like a really deep conversation. That's hilarious.
Every time. Yeah. I don't know what to do with myself. Like you see movies, everyone's having so much fun. I was like, I would be so uncomfortable in that situation.
Yeah. People are always really interested to know that I'm actually an introvert, not an extrovert. But
Me too.
That's just the way it is.
Yep.
Very cool.
You're listening to the Break Podcast powered by Career Cloud.
This episode is sponsored by ZipRecruiter. If you need a change and are looking for a new job, or if you're looking to hire for your small business, please check out ZipRecruiter today. Their smart technology matches the right candidates to the right jobs and sends new opportunities right to your inbox. They make finding a job or hiring the right person easier than ever. ZipRecruiter, the smarter way to hire. Try ZipRecruiter for free today by going to ZipRecruiter.com and tell them I sent you. I'm going to flip this a little bit. I want to ask some sort of rapid fire questions. I want to then get at anything that I didn't cover, and we want to make sure we leave people with where they can find more about you and all that kind of stuff. But here's just some sort of like top of mind rapid fire questions. So you're on LinkedIn all the time and social media. Is there a recent author, thought leader, or influencer that you've come across that's really caught your attention and people should know about?
Yeah. So it ties into what I mentioned earlier. There's a guy named Rick Taylor, and he's like the father of intentional thought, emotion and goal first financial planning, on top of the numbers or before the numbers. And so he just wrote this book called Coupleship Inc. It's literally right here on my desk. From financial conflict to financial intimacy. And it's basically how couples, because it's the number one cause of divorce, right? Is finances. How can couples and how can we as planners help couples be healthier with their money and be more intentional with their money and setting goals as a team? So that's had a really big impact, and that's having a big impact on how we reshape our financial planning services right now as a team.
I love asides, so I'm going to just chime in real quick. But the idea of communication within couples, within families around finances is obviously huge, and it goes the same for when you are going through like a career transition. One of the areas that I say we can create advantage from is support, and I think about that in terms of assets, but also in terms of spousal support. Because if you guys are at odds with what you want to do and one of you doesn't understand at an emotional level what is driving the other person to want a change, it's really tough. And so I talk a lot about, you got to have these conversations together, and you got to be on the same page, and you got to think through your options of how you can mitigate the one who's worried's risk tolerance, mitigate that with also going after your, what you want, that's perceived as a larger risk. So I think there's a lot of overlap there between, just financial planning and career transition.
Definitely.
Okay. So you just gave us that book. Do you have another book on top of your mind that you're reading now or have read recently that's had a big impact on you?
Yeah, I'm reading another one right now too. So I've got a 13, almost 14-year-old who's a straight A student who I'm really excited about her college process. And so we have a lot of clients with kids going to college as well. So I'm reading a book. It's upstairs. I cannot remember the name of it, but it's the Insider's Guide to Getting into College. And basically a New York Times writer embedded himself at Tufts, University of North Carolina, and then another school he hasn't mentioned yet, in their admissions department, and talking about what really happens and how people get selected and why the selectivity numbers are all crap. And all of the business side of the colleges and how some colleges are buyers and some colleges are sellers. And talking about how you need to completely reframe how you think about college and your college process. And, for example, everyone knows all the brand name, Ivy League schools, Stanford, Caltech, MIT. but 99% of people shouldn't even apply there because they're going to get a much better education for a lot less money at one of the other 3,000 colleges in America. And so applying to those reach schools for a lot of kids is a complete waste of time. Although I went to one of them, it worked for me, but for a lot of kids and a lot of kids of our clients who aren't the top 1% of their graduating class, applying to those reach schools and then, maybe even getting in and being, the bottom 25% of the incoming class is not very much fun. It's like playing on a varsity team when you're not ready yet. And it's okay because people develop at different times in their lives, but there's a lot of really good schools out there. Like for my daughter, she's a great student, but she's probably going to be happier at a small to mid-sized liberal arts college. That's not MIT. That's not Harvard. That's not Stanford. Or like a Davidson or a Carleton or a Pomona or there's a ton of them out there, right?
Right.
They're probably a better fit for her. So that's what I'm leaning into right now is kind of preparing myself for this discussion.
That's going to be on my list because I got three boys that are a little bit younger, but I'm certainly thinking about their future, and so that one will go on my list. Where are you on the whole college, no college debate?
Yeah, so for a lot of our kids of clients who are in tech, for example, the Googles and the Teslas of the world kind of don't care. They're more concerned about what you can do, and a lot of that coding and other type of education is free now online. And they'll even provide the Amazons, the Googles, the big tech firms are actually educating people in the things that they need to learn. You can do it for free online. So does spending 4 years and $200,000 make sense for that? Maybe not, right? I really hate for kids to go to college with no idea whatsoever what they're going to want to say. I understand college is a chance to try things out and figure out who you are. But, there's so many kids now on the 5-year plan and they go in, they're spending 25 or 50% more than they expected to. And they end up wasting the first couple of years kind of not knowing what they want to major in. College is incredibly expensive now. And the fact that you're also not earning makes that those incredibly expensive time. So I encourage people the kids especially, to figure some of that stuff out a little bit earlier before they get to school. And if they don't know and they're not ready, then take some time and, go travel or work for a while and then go to college. You don't have to follow this linear path and spend money.
Interesting you say that. It's like part of advantage mapping. It's born out of like people, in their 30s, 40s who want to make a different change. And what does that be? And what could that be? And what is the exploration process around that? And I think I'm driven by what do I need to be teaching my kids so that they're adaptable, resilient, and able to take all the change that comes to them. And so part of what I'm working on actually at the moment is like sort of online curriculum in order to sort of put guardrails around that exploration process for high school, college age students so they can have some type of framework to work through in order to explore that. So it's not so random. Okay, yeah, take a year off. Sure, go travel. Yes, but like, what are you going to learn about yourself? Like, how do you figure out your desires, what you want, what you're interested in, what your talents are, and how do you then sort of, I guess, explore ways that you could actualize that? So that's stuff more to come from me, but I think it's a big problem, and I think it could hopefully relieve some of the parents' anxieties. As well. They knew that their kids were had some type of plan around discovering that.
Yeah, I would support that by saying some of the people that I've met who are incredibly successful entrepreneurs are not good students. And they think laterally and different like you do. They think horizontally, if you will. And the thought of sitting through 4 years of classes and then going to work for a big company is like, asking them to drink motor oil. Like, why would you do that? Yeah. Right. That just college is not the right framework for them. So there's that.
Yeah. Excellent. All right. Next question is, so there's a lot of, layoffs, anxiety in the world, negativity, but what's something that's really got you excited about the next 12 months? That could be personally, or it could be just something you see on the horizon that's really got you excited and hopeful and optimistic about the next 12 months.
Yeah, I mean, this one's kind of silly, but I didn't realize that I really like being a coach.
Mm-hmm.
So in this case, my daughter didn't know she was an athlete, kind of like me with an entrepreneurship. She didn't know she was an athlete until we discussed it. And I told her she needed to have a sport here in middle school, and she started running track and then realized she was good at it. And now I've been coaching her. Now we're just starting cross country season. She has her first meet on Saturday. And I'm finding that the coaching that I'm doing with her is very much like the coaching I do with my clients. I've kind of already developed the muscles, and it's kind of some of the same language as setting goals and being encouraging and making sure you do the small stuff to get the big stuff. And it's really fun to see her confidence improve as her running competence improves, right? And to see that, I worry, just on a side note, of young girls and body issues and Instagram and all the stuff that they see, and a lot of the messaging that comes, and the fact that her body is strong and healthy and fit and she's a good athlete, it just helps her bypass a lot of things that I think maybe a lot of girls are maybe struggle with. That's what I'm hoping.
Excellent. All right, now I'm going to just kind of get into our quick wrap up questions. I've been going on a little bit of a rant to people about the 401k, and I want to give you my rant and have you react to it. And then I want to make sure if there's anything that I didn't ask and I was a horrible host, I want to make sure you can, have a chance to just say anything you want, plus leave people with where we can find more about you. But what I say to people is that if you're just starting out in your job, let's say for the first 3 years, and maybe it's a limit like $3,000, instead of putting that first money into your 401k, use it to invest in yourself and explore your areas of interest. And the reason I say that is because your whole industry probably says it's free money if you get a match, and that's 100% return. And I just think your rate of return on investing in yourself, especially in those early crucial years, it could be absolute orders of magnitude higher than that. So I've gone on some rants with that, and people have really resonated with that. And I wanted to throw that in front of a financial planner and see what they said.
Oh, I completely agree. Why wouldn't you? One of my big things, like you asked me one thing that I haven't gotten to say during this interview that I wanted to make sure people left with, was that something my dad taught me when I was young. He said, get your education while you're young. And to me, that meant get through college, get through grad school, get all of my CFA, CFP, MBA, all that stuff done while I don't have a family, I don't have a mortgage, don't have a dog yet, right? Don't have a girlfriend, right? And getting all that done and investing in myself early on is really, really wise, especially because it helps you kind of narrow down what you're interested in. The more you expose yourself to, the more you know what you don't want to do. So I was able to do the 401k, get the match, and do that. I was fortunate. If it comes down to sitting in a dead end job and having $100,000 in a 401k and being unhappy, or spending money to go out and have experiences and figure out who you are, well, that's a no-brainer.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. Well, cool. I'm glad I got a little bit of positive affirmation for that from the industry, even though I like you, Richard, and you're a different thinker. So I don't want to put you in that bucket, but it just feels good to get a little affirmation for that. All right. So if I was a terrible host and I didn't ask you something, I want to just give you the floor. Any message you want to leave our audience with, or anything you think is really important that you want to nail home from this conversation, I give you the floor.
Yeah, I mean, it's really simple. Figure out what you're interested in, get really good at it, and then bet on yourself. Full stop.
Bet on yourself. I love that. If you're watching on YouTube, you can see Archer Investment Management on the sign behind them, but behind Richard. But Richard, tell us where people can find more about you, follow you, listen to your message, and learn from you going forward.
Yeah, I'm all over the place, but LinkedIn, I'm big. Richard Archer on LinkedIn. My whole team posts 3 times a week each. So we have videos and content all the time. I love it if you came on there and asked questions and commented. I love talking on LinkedIn. And we just built a specific new web page just for this podcast called youneedafinancialplanner.com. And all of the things that I have shared with you today are in a downloadable free book that you can get, so you don't have to take notes.
Excellent. And we will make sure we have all the links to that in our show notes when the episode launches, and we'll be promoting all of that stuff on social media. Richard, I really enjoyed this conversation. Thank you so much for sharing your time and your talents with us. This was, I think, very important for people to hear. And I know we gained a lot from your experience. I'm going to be really excited and interested to continue our conversations online as we maybe move this over to LinkedIn. But I would love to continue to stay in touch, and so I can learn from you, and our entire audience can continue to learn from you. So thank you.
Absolutely. It was a pleasure. This is one of the best podcasts I've been on because it was a really good give and take. And I think you and I are both truly interested in each other. So that was fun. I appreciate it.
Excellent. Feel the same. And I love hearing that. So thank you so much. Have an amazing rest of your weekend. We'll talk soon.
You too.